Good morning, people online. I just wanted to talk a little bit today about accountability. So, um, as I've said before, I've watched a lot of YouTube commentary, and it's interesting to see all these problematic people online say, I've taken accountability, but meanwhile, they will never say point blank out loud what it is they've done wrong, just that they're sorry, that they want to move on from it, that, or they'll minimize what they've done, um, like, oh, I overreacted, but meanwhile the overreaction is hitting someone, which is what you need to be taking accountability for. No one cares if it was an overreaction. It's the action that we care about, someone being accountable for. And so I just want to remind people that accountability is not just saying I'm accountable. It makes me think of from The Office, where Michael Scott goes, I declare bankruptcy. That's not how you do it. You don't take accountability by saying, I am accountable. That's not how it goes. When someone has done wrong, holding yourself accountable looks like freely admitting, I did this and it was wrong. Saying specifically, if you hit someone, saying, hey, I hit someone, I see now that violence is not the answer and I'm gonna try not to do that moving forward. That would be taking accountability. Or if, the things with Cinnabunny, hey, my kid was on a pole that people were filming content on. That's wrong, and I see that now. Accountability is about admitting what you've done wrong, saying how you know now that it's wrong, and making a promise to do better moving forward. It's not just vaguely admitting to past wrongdoings, like we see with Elizabeth Chicken Broth or whatever. She just says, yeah, I did bad stuff in the past. It's you mean charity fraud? You gotta say the quiet part out loud or it doesn't count. And complaining about people not wanting to move forward after you've severely harmed and wronged them, that's not them being petty or being hateful. That's them wanting justice. And just like all the people that are now fighting for justice in our country, there's nothing wrong with wanting justice when you've been wronged. Now, obviously, a person who has been wronged, you can obsess over being wronged and be stuck in that victim mentality, which I freely admit I did when I went through abuse with my son's birth father. I demonized him really bad, and he did do a lot of really terrible things, sexual assault, physical abuse, but it was only to my detriment when I made myself a perpetual victim, and it only filled me with actual hatred to not be able to reconcile, I guess, in myself that yes, these things had happened. And I think I've talked about this before too. Acceptance is not just admitting that something happened, but letting go of that desire to want to change it. And that's really hard when we come across things like being physically abused. But at the same time too, and this isn't meant to gaslight victims, because I do think there is a part in the healing journey where you have to feel that anger, that righteous anger for yourself to know you didn't deserve that, right? But then there's the next stage after that, and that is acceptance and understanding, yes, I didn't deserve this, but yes, it still happened. And instead of staying stuck in the past, wishing you could change something you'll never be able to change, you have to understand that now you've been given an opportunity to make something of this terrible mess. And that's the hardest part, in my opinion, because, like I said, when I was in a domestic violence relationship, after I got out and finally accepted that, yes, what had happened to me was wrong, because I hadn't accepted that when I was in the abusive relationship. I was always fighting to prove that it was wrong. Once you accept, though, that, yes, wrongdoings happened to me, then you have to be willing to let go of that strong desire to change it. And it is really hard when you've been truly victimized to let go of that desire to change your victimhood. But coming out of victimhood is about saying, yes, I was victimized by someone, but that's not my whole story. That's not all I am. I am so much more than that. And I think that's where real healing comes from. And so, though in my own life, yes, I would have loved to not been abused by my son's birth father. At the same time, I no longer wish to go back and change it, because I appreciate it for the part of my life that was a story and a lesson for me. Not saying that I would do it again, or want to go through it again, but I also no longer have that extreme craving to change what happened to me. And I'm still working on that with my trauma from being abused by my mother. There's still a lot of me that wishes it hadn't happened, because of seeing with clarity how much it really messed me up as a teenager, as a young adult, how I made a lot of really impulsive bad decisions because I was just running from who I was. And but I would like to get there one day, to where I'm not, when I think about it, just wishing that it hadn't happened, and instead learning to be grateful for what I can get out of it. Because the thing is, every negative can have a positive if you look hard enough for it. And again, this is not meant to gaslight victims. This does not mean continue to stay with someone abusing you at all. This can only happen once you are safe and out of a dangerous situation. Otherwise, you end up with Stockholm syndrome, right? We can't forgive a bad action that's happened to us if it is still happening, because if it's still happening, the person is not sorry. And it's not right to have to continually forgive someone for abusing you. But once you are out of that danger, and once you begin to work with a mental health professional on working through why was this wrong, what could I have done differently? And sometimes you couldn't have done anything differently. But when you are an adult and you are facing an abusive situation with another adult, you do have, to some degree, power to leave. Now, that doesn't mean it'll be easy. Maybe you'll have to be homeless. Maybe you'll have no money to your name. That sucks, and it's hard. And it's really hard for people to choose that, even when they're being abused, because unknown is scary. But I can firmly say that healing from abuse does not happen when you are still being abused. For healing to happen, you have to be somewhere safe. I know I've gone on a tangent. This was supposed to be about accountability. But yeah, I think even too, when we are victims of other people's abuses, it is good to take accountability for our own actions. For the people that watch my channel, I saw 50 of you guys watched my story about Tara Nicole Simmons abusing me, cyber stalking me, mentally abusing me, threatening me with spreading lies and filing false CPS reports to silence me. And so I wanted to accept my own accountability and say, I did message her first once. I had heard from people that she was talking to people, making things up about me, and I definitely came across as aggressive because I was upset. And I should have just not said anything, because I knew and was told by multiple people, hey, she's not going to admit what she did wrong, and she's not going to see anything wrong with it. But I was stubborn, and I wanted to believe that everyone is capable of confronting their own wrongdoings and saying sorry, and she just wasn't. And that's not my problem, that's hers, But my part in it is I did come across upset, and of course, thinking back, hindsight is 20/20. No one's gonna want to admit they did wrong when someone's mad at them over it, right? If I were a better person, I would have been able to come at her with compassion and try to be understanding, and maybe she would have told the truth, but most likely not. Really, what I should have done was just not engage with someone like that, because it's futile. So, yeah. Accountability, when we hold ourselves accountable, it's not about blame. It's about loving ourselves enough to admit what we are responsible for and what we are not. I am not responsible for anyone's actions, but I am responsible for mine, and I am responsible for my reactions as well. I am the only one responsible for my reactions. Someone could spit in my face. If I punch them, I am responsible for punching someone in the face. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. When we don't hold ourselves accountable, we miss out on a really great opportunity to grow. And I think that's sad. And I feel bad for people like that. To be stuck in those same patterns of repeating behavior, just cycling through, oh, this happened to me, I'm a victim here, this person's bad, oh, now this person's bad, I'm a victim of them. And it's just, it sounds like a really tiring way to live. I know when I was stuck in victim mentality with my son's birth father, it was exhausting to always be afraid and always be worried about how someone was gonna, like, do me wrong, not being able to trust people. And I think a lot of that stemmed from not feeling like I couldn't trust myself, really, because I thought, if I could fall in love with someone who could do me so wrong, how can I trust my intuition about anyone else? And I just want to let people know that are going through this, like, yes, you have some responsibility in these kinds of scenarios, but at the same time, too, again, we're never responsible for the actions of others. Like, we're not responsible for their reactions or their actions. They choose at the end of the day what kind of person they would like to be. And so, similarly, it's that way with ourselves as well. No one else is going to be responsible for our actions or our reactions. We can, but honestly, no one else has the blame for our actions or reactions, only we do. And cognitive behavioral therapy helped me a lot with this, really truly understanding that I am in control not only of my actions and reactions, but my thoughts around things that happen, And so if I am feeling particularly bad about something which I have experienced, I can choose to keep ruminating, which sometimes doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like an impulse, or like what's the word? Like an automatic reaction. But you can choose to consciously think of other things, or to try and see it from another perspective. One of my favorite things to do with a bad situation is to turn it upside down and try to see it from the exact opposite perspective. And then I generally find that my initial reaction and the opposite reaction are both wrong in some way, and that the real truth lies somewhere in the middle. And so, yeah, I just wanted to rant a little bit today about bullshit. Thank you so much, though, to everyone that watches my videos, likes them, and subscribes. Like, I'm almost at 500 subscribers, which is monetization level, and almost at 500,000 views, which is literally insane. I know it's probably mostly from cat videos, but still, it really means a lot to me. To be able to get my voice out here, share my experiences, because I spent my whole childhood being unable to talk about what I'd been through. And then even once I was physically able, and safe to talk about what had happened to me, I dealt with a lot of inner shame for what I'd gone through. Incest is something that brings a lot of shame to people. When you're a victim of it, you feel responsible for it. And even when you don't, or when you're working through not feeling responsible for it, you understand the social taboo and obviously just the general ickiness that comes with it. It makes you feel like you're gross, but you are not. Again, we are not responsible for the actions of others. We are only responsible for our actions. And I'm proud of myself for what I've chosen to do. I've chosen to speak freely about my abuses without shame, without blaming other people, without being a victim, but just say, yes, this happened to me. This is how I badly dealt with it, and this is how I'm learning to deal with it. And, I hope that someone who is going through it can find my videos and have an easier time. So, I love you all out there, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.